recognizing that this person is exactly the same as myself in not wanting to suffer and wanting to be happy. So I think that kind of insight, which is really, it's not really a religious thing, is it? You don't have to think about karma, you don't have to think about past lives, you don't have to think about the Buddha and so on. I mean, it's just a fact, isn't it? Everybody is the same as oneself. Even if it's just that, actually. Even just that knowledge, I mean, that kind of insight. I think that's really life-changing. Not life-changing in the way that when you win, I don't know, how many million on the lottery, which could make your life worse, often does, from what I've read. But life-changing in the sense that, you have something for the rest of your life, which is going to make your life better, and life better for the people around you. In Buddhism, especially, Mahayana Buddhism, famously, we talk about how all beings have been our mother. For most of us, anyway, the one that you have the one that you feel closest to is your mother. At least with your mother, the very thought of her suffering is unbearable. So one has that natural feeling of not being able to bear it, that she would have difficulties and that you want her to be happy. It's just something that's completely uncontrived, very natural. And yet there are other people, if you hear about their suffering, then you might even do a dance of happiness to hear of their misfortune. So what's the difference? The difference is in feeling that feeling of closeness. And if you're able to recognize that all sentient beings have been your mother, same as this mother, then, why would you want to hurt them? Why would you delight in their suffering? If there's been a previous life, that means that there must have been a life before that and a life before that, and a kind of beginningless. It's pretty obvious that you wouldn't have had the same mother each time. And then it becomes pretty obvious if you think about it, a lot of sentient beings must have been. So it's not just that all sentient beings have been your mother, they've also been your father. And in fact, when you look at the Amazon Kappa's commentary on the Madhyamaka, he talks about, it's not just that all beings have been your mother, but also your father, brother, sister, husband, wife, son, daughter, uncle, aunt. They've been all of that, which means actually, just suppose you find it really impossible to feel something positive towards your mother, which some people do. Well, they've also been your father. And if that doesn't work, they've also been your mother. I mean, because of this idea that they're past lives. So, feeling close to others because they've all been your mother, not just once, but many times. But even without thinking about that, just, recognizing that every single other living being, and, especially in a way that the people that you're with, people around you, the people that you actually interact with on whatever level, in whatever way, in the shops, at work, family, whatever, understanding the suffering and the hardships, physical, mental, that others are experiencing, and finding that unbearable. Finding it unbearable because you really feel, all other living beings, we're all kind of one family. And then when you start thinking, well, not just how sad it is that others are suffering, but, I really want to do something. If it's your mother, you don't just think, wouldn't it be nice if everything was okay for her? You yourself would feel like you want to do something. Just like you like to be helped. Just like oneself likes to be helped, Others like to be helped. Want to be respected, cared for, cherished, and all that. So anyway, compassion that comes from feeling close by recognizing we're all the same. So then, the bodhicitta, it's like, so how am I going to do that? How am I going to really help others? And so the only way, the main way is by achieving enlightenment. So in other words, the main way is you need to show them how to find happiness, because you can't just make people happy by wanting it to be so. So you decide, I've got to learn more. I've got to develop these qualities of loving kindness, compassion, and so on, wisdom, stronger and stronger. There's, some hope that if you keep cultivating that awareness, then you would feel towards all sentient beings, all living beings, the same way that you feel towards your mother, not being able to bear their suffering, not wanting them to be happy, never wanting to do any harm. How could you harm your mother, that kind of thing. They talk about the different ways, different approaches for developing this precious mind of bodhicitta, the awakening mind of bodhicitta. So there's one way where the focus isn't on how all sentient beings have been your mother, and it's more to do with recognizing that all others are exactly the same as myself in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering, and in a way that's maybe a more powerful way of developing a feeling of like equal compassion and loving kindness and so on towards all beings, because this person is exactly the same as myself. And I don't want suffering, so they don't want suffering either. And just like I don't want other people to cause me suffering, they also don't want others to cause them suffering. So I shouldn't cause them suffering. If somebody causes me to suffer, I don't like it. So they're not going to like it if I cause them to suffer. Same. So just thinking along those lines, just starting off from that basic first point that we're all the same in not wanting suffering and wanting to be happy, then the whole of the progress towards bodhicitta enlightenment is still possible. And ultimately, so the way to help others is to achieve enlightenment. So that's bodhicitta. And not just wanting it, like when you think about it, oh, that's a nice idea. Yeah, I would like to achieve enlightenment, but like it's day and night, and this burning desire to free others from suffering and to achieve enlightenment for their sakes, then that's bodhicitta. Then you become a bodhisattva. So in other words, a bodhisattva is somebody whose like main thing at all times is serving others, helping others, and achieving enlightenment in order to be able to do that, to be able to help others better. Actually, the thing about a bodhisattva is you can't tell who is a bodhisattva and who's not. Somebody who's really bad doesn't necessarily have horns growing out of their head, so a bodhisattva is not necessarily that. You can't tell who they are because of a halo around the head or something. You can't tell. And that's why they say it's actually like bodhisattvas are like hot coals covered by ashes. So it looks like there's nothing there. It just looks like ashes. So when you see ashes, you don't see something that looks hot, right? But underneath there are hot coals. So the heat is there, but you can't see it. So like that with the bodhisattvas, they have this warm heart and these inner qualities, but you can't really tell. Because also you see, when we talk about compassion, a lot of people think compassion means, oh, poor sentient being, that kind of thing. Whatever they say they want, just give it to them. So that's what we call idiot compassion. So there's also something, the real compassion is going to be actually like tough compassion, because you're more concerned with people's long-term happiness and well-being. And so sometimes you might need to be severe. If somebody is doing something that's hurting themselves and hurting others, then you might need to be quite severe with them to stop them. So that's why you can't really tell. It could be the one that's being very nice and friendly to you is, the one that's stabbing you in the back. And it could be that the Bodhisattva is the one that's yelling at you. The Bodhisattva could be the person down at the, who's, checking your groceries out at Sainsbury's. Could be the one who's taking your trash away. Can't tell.